everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Amnesia the Bunker. Amnesia the Bunker is the latest survival horror in the Amnesia series from indie studio Frictional Games. Frictional Games is known for making survival horror games filled with things like cosmic horror or existential dread. This one is no exception to that. It keeps in line with tropes from other Amnesia games, but also subverts some expectations from fans of the series. Let's go over how by first looking at the gameplay. The gameplay of Amnesia the Bunker involves first and foremost survival. You will constantly have to hide, run, or fight off a monster that is chasing you throughout the bunker. Unlike previous games, the game takes a Metroidvania-style approach to your exploration, letting you explore wherever you want within reason, and having you backtrack whenever you find something needed to move forward. So expect to have to manage your resources. Speaking of which, some resources you have are things like fuel for the electricity in the bunker, or weapons, a series first. However, your weapons will only delay the monster and will never actually rid you of it entirely. The game also encourages you to experiment, giving you options such as using fuel for electricity or for fighting, and there are multiple solutions to most of the dangerous situations. But since Amnesia games tend to tell an involved story, how is it in this one? The story follows HenricK, a French soldier, during World War I in, of course, a bunker. After a small series of events, Henry is incapacitated and sent to recover in the medical ward of the bunker. After waking up, he discovers that something very wrong has happened in the bunker, leading to the demise of his fellow soldiers. He then encounters the monster that follows him throughout the game and reveals the otherworldly mystery surrounding its origins. Considering the game is pretty short at around 5 hours, it still manages to tell a full story, and you don't have to have played the previous games to understand it. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? Yeah, so that's Amnesia the Bunker. It brings me back to 2010 when the first Amnesia game came out, Amnesia the Dark Descent. It was one of the first games that actually skyrocketed a lot of YouTubers to popularity back then, like Markiplier, for example. It really helped him and others get a lot of views because it was very much the kind of game that you can watch someone play, and it's so entertaining to watch them play it because they are so scared the entire time through. And, obviously they're probably hamming it up a little bit, maybe, but it was just back then a very entertaining game. And I think that the other two games that came out before this one, kind of not really great. Frictional Games does do a pretty good job of delivering a pretty interesting story, but the game hasn't really changed that much at its core since 2010. Even in another game that they made called Soma, which had a crazy story to it. That one was pretty much the same kind of gameplay as Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And so when this one came out, all of a sudden, oh, okay, so they actually are changing up the way that you're playing it. You're not just hiding; you get to actually throw a grenade at this monster, and it delays it, but it'll eventually come back after a few minutes. And then also the fact that you can, like I mentioned in the video, it's a Metroidvania kind of style of exploration where just like in the Metroid games or the Castlevania games, you'll be able to pretty much go everywhere pretty early on, but you'll be blocked off and eventually have to come back with a new weapon or like a key or something. And I think that was a good move considering they definitely needed that with the game. Yeah. But what do you think, Chris?
Well, it definitely feels like a copycat of Resident Evil. I mean, that's kind of what I thought. I mean, the minute they finally brought weapons into the game, it just kind of felt like they were stealing a lot of the aesthetics. Does anybody remember Season 8, Episode 3 of Game of Thrones? How dark it
What
was
happened in that?
throughout the episode. It was so
Oh,
dark that so many people complained. You can hardly see shit when you're playing this game. It's totally insane. And there was an amazing clip that you actually showcased in your pause and repeat video where, you're under the table and then you knocked over that chair. And there's like moments in the game where it's like, if the monster's walking in the room and I'm just like barely crouched, like as if I was doing a school earthquake drill in elementary, like that guy would clearly see me under the table, but not in this game, which I think kind of loses some of the scary elements that I wish Amnesia the Bunker would have. I'm not very much in favor of this game personally. I think it's a quick burner. I think some cats will have some fun playing late in the dark, but for me personally, HenricK, I'd say it's a pause.
that's fair. And I think that I agree with you in a lot of things, especially the fact that it's a very dark game. It's definitely the kind of game that they want you to play in the darkness in your room, like complete pitch black,
Yeah.
nothing but the screen. And actually, funny enough, as I was editing the video, I was like, man, this is going to be way too dark for our viewers to look at. So I actually had to boost the brightness up a little bit to make sure
It's
that
funny that you
people could
said
do
that.
that.
I thought I noticed that because I
Yeah.
was like, the game is actually very, very dark and very, very hard to see. And I think that's one of the cool parts. You get one of those like flashlights, like the old school ones in the
Yeah, yeah.
1916s, where you're basically cranking the flashlight. A lot of that kind of cool elements is very fun. And I'm a big junkie when it comes to World War One and World War II aesthetics, which makes it fun, visually throughout the game. But it just feels like it's lacking something. I just kind of wanted something more out of it.
Well, I think I can enjoy the story for what it was. It actually has an interesting twist towards the end. If those of you out there haven't played it, but I think that I can agree with you in the sense that it's probably going to be a pause for me as well, considering even though they kind of want you to replay this game, it's short enough that you really would be able to if you
Right.
really wanted to. And they do randomize some things that you have to collect in an attempt to really incentivize you to play through it and get a different experience. But I think considering that even though it is that Metroidvania style, at its core, the gameplay is still basically the same as the original Amnesia game. And I think that they probably are going to need to innovate on that in their next game that they release, because I think that people are getting a little bit tired of that. Fans of their games.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I guess the final point that I will say is that I know a lot of people were kind of praising, the monster, the creature in the game, only because some people have compared it to Alien Isolation, where the AI is a little bit more smarter nowadays. Where I know in that game, when you start to do the same tactic over and over again, like hiding under a table and blocking off with the chair, the monster is going to start to catch on after a while throughout the game. So you got to get a little bit more creative when you're playing the bunker, which I think that's going to be a fun element for certain gamers. But again, to me, it still feels a bit outdated, the game.
You know what? It's actually interesting you bring up Alien, though. That game actually has a better, like, stalking monster than this one. The AI is actually better than the AI in this game. And when people compare the two, you can't go into this game expecting the same kind of experience as the Alien Isolation game if you've played that one before, because, and it probably is, maybe a limitation of the fact that they are still an indie developer, and resources can be a little scarce sometimes. But at the end of the day, like, it really just highlights the fact that there are better games out there if you're looking for a truly chilling experience that keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you referenced even before we even started our conversation with Pause and Repeat, they did develop the game Soma, which is excellent, by the way. So it's not like the studio company doesn't, like they drop bad games. That's just not the case. It's just not personally for me. So again, I'm a call a pause. What do you say, HenricK?
I'm going to say it's a pause for me too.
Hey, the verdict is in.